folks. First of all, thanks so much for spending time with us on this talk. I'm Siadhal. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO at Metaview. We started Metaview back in 2018, really with a mission to build an AI co-pilot for the recruiting process, really with a special focus on the interview process. How can we help folks involved in interviewing? Because that's really where hiring becomes a team sport, and a lot of the, well, we found disruption and lack of reliability in hiring occurs. I saw this firsthand as a hiring manager at Uber during its hyper-growth phase, and came away with this observation, really, that oftentimes it's interviewing where hiring becomes especially messy. We work with some amazing companies like Cleo, who we'll focus on today, but also Robinhood, Clio, AngelList, Catawiki, and hundreds of others. And really this year, all the innovation that we've seen this year from the likes of OpenAI and Anthropic has been a massive game changer actually for us and our ability to build game-changing products, and also for our customers. So yeah, I'm here to give a bit of perspective on what that means for us all in recruiting, and then also deep dive into examples of how that manifests itself through one of our customers, Cleo. So before we dive into that, I'll let Annie introduce herself as well.
Hey everyone, so I'm Annie and I head up the TA team at Cleo. For those who haven't heard of Cleo, we are a fintech scale-up with a mission to enable our users to build a life beyond a paycheck. We're building an AI personal finance assistant to help our users in the US with their financial well-being. Cleo helps our users by encouraging them to spend their money better, build good credit, and save what they can, with the ultimate goal of helping them to feel a lot more better about their financial well-being. We've raised over $140 million since we started about 6 years ago, and have around 240 employees across the UK, Europe, and the US. As an AI company ourselves, we're always looking for ways to really help our teams work smarter using AI. And one area where we found some real success and impact through using AI is in our recruitment processes, which is what we'll talk about later in the presentation.
Thanks. So first of all, let's get a little bit punchy. Our opinion, our meaning Metaview in this case, maybe in Cleo's case too, is that really AI is going to be a massive force for good for recruitment and recruitment professionals. There tends to be a lot of doom mongering about the potential maybe negative impact of AI, and I think that's misplaced. The reason for that is pretty simple. If you sort of stack rank all of the job roles within your respective companies and audit it by which of these roles is most human-centric versus most process-centric or technology-centric, recruiting would be right at the top of that list. It's incredibly human-centric, and that means we actually believe it's really well insulated from some of the negative disruption that may well occur as a result of AI. So really at its core, it's a very human process. And what that means on the ground is really that relationships with other human beings are key within recruitment, whether that's candidates, the most obvious one, or hiring managers or other members of the hiring team. It involves rich, often synchronous communication between these human beings. And these are the things that are not actually going to go away as a result of this technical revolution we're experiencing. They're actually the things that are going to become more important. It's really everything else that's going to be jettisoned and automated. For recruiters and recruiting leaders, the way that we encourage folks to think about it is you'll move from a world where you spend less of your time, you or your team spend less of your time on drudgery. So this is the admin or the toil associated with getting your work done, and more time and focus on building relationships with candidates and hiring managers. And you'll move to a world where there's less guesswork in how to develop your process, who to hire, and much more informed action. That's the promise that we see with AI.
Hi, Jim.
Let's see an example.
I'm really excited to be interviewing for your company today. Oh, and I just want to say how appreciative I am of this opportunity. I can kick off by giving a bit of an introduction about my past work experiences and how I ended up applying for the role. When I saw what you were looking for in the role, I thought that my background aligned well with the experiences and technical skill set. And I also read up on your values and it really resonated with me. I've been working at a big company for the past few years, so I'm excited about the opportunity to work for a startup.
Okay, I had to have made some kind of a dent by now.
Oh, Jim, sorry. Jim, can you hear me?
come on! Oh,
Jim? Are you even there?
this is gonna suck up my whole life.
Jim?
Yes, to all.
I guess the interview's done.
Yeah, there you go. Now everybody's happy.
You know, I bet Jim has never heard of Metaview.
So we can pause that there. So the point of that video was, of course, Jim could have been anyone, right? He was not really being a present, curious, engaging human in that interaction with the candidate. He was there to take notes. And that's a really real waste of precious time with candidates when you're trying to help them through this matchmaking process to make a really big life decision. And when you think about it as a recruiting professional, the scary thing maybe about that scene, much it is of course exaggerated, is again, Jim could have been anyone. If he needed a last minute replacement to run that interview instead, it would have been the same outcome. A robot could have done that job. And that's really, we want to do less of the work where we can easily imagine a robot replacing us. So when we think about this opportunity broadly, and we think about this world of moving from less drudgery to more zone of genius or more relationship building, here's some examples of the things we mean. I won't sort of go through all of them, but the high level is there's a lot of our work that, as recruiters, we've long thought of as getting in the way of the things we really want to do. That's things like really getting to know candidates, really understanding the hiring manager, or really understanding the business goals that they're recruiting for, advising the hiring manager on the reality of the market as opposed to just finding candidates and putting them in front of them. Those are all of the things that we believe AI has the promise to help us spend more time on and less time on all the other things that are just required for us to get candidates in front of hiring managers and the hiring team. So moving on to Cleo. Cleo is really for us a best practice example of how forward-thinking TA teams are already starting to put this theory into practice. We'll now take a deeper look at how Cleo has leveraged AI to eliminate some of the most manual and most tedious parts of the hiring process that up till now have just been part of the job because it was impossible to do them any other way. And as a result, spend more time on the things that really matter. So yeah, Annie, can you tell us more about the challenges?
Absolutely. I guess as an AI-first business, we're always looking out for tools that can really help augment our team and to allow our team to spend their time on the things that really matter. On the talent team and across the business, it's important we stay up to date with all of the advancement in AI in particular. As an employer, we offer our team OpenAI free subscription. So we use ChatGPT as a talent team quite a lot, from crafting job ads through to compiling lists of companies to source from. Metaview is another tool that we were really keen to trial, as the time taken crafting kind of scorecards, taking notes, was really impacting productivity, not only for the talent team, but for our hiring managers, our interviewers, and also impacting candidate experience as well. So we had a particular set of challenges that we faced that we ultimately ended up working with Siadhal and the team at Metaview to improve. This year at Cleo, we've been aiming as a talent team to double our hiring velocity, and a lot of that hiring has been around hiring engineers and data scientists. The talent team was speaking to multiple candidates a day. We had tons of open roles and interview cycles happening simultaneously, and the team, well, my team, are getting really bogged down with taking notes and crafting and writing up scorecards for our hiring managers. At the same time, hiring managers, particularly engineering managers, were coming up to us and saying that they were really struggling to fill in scorecards to the agreed SLAs that we had in place. We heard that they were spending up to an hour filling in scorecards per candidate. This really wasn't sustainable, so we knew we needed a solution that could help us to really ease the burden. The team weren't able to submit scorecards at the pace that we needed them to, which in some cases led to an impact on time to hire, and in the worst case, led to us missing out on great candidates. Thank you.
Cool. So that was the context for, I've got written down here, Annie came to us to say, hey, can you help us? In reality, it was much more the other way around. I was probably badgering Annie for a good few months before she agreed that, yes, this is something that would help us. But essentially with this idea of how can we leverage AI for some of these very tactical, very tangible, on-the-ground pain points that these folks that are involved in hiring are feeling day to day. Because I think everyone in this room has probably started to get the sense that the things that we can now start to leverage technology for, that bucket's gotten a lot bigger. And Cleo were very aware of this. So first of all, before we jump into the impact at Cleo, I think worth sharing, I think maybe the Jim Carrey video did a bit of the job, but just clarifying really what Metaview is and what it does. There are essentially sort of three killers of any high quality recruitment process that we use AI to solve. The first one, as you would have seen in the, I guess the negative view from the video, is frantic note-taking during interviews. So, really when we're hiring, we can only spend so many minutes and maybe hours getting to know candidates before we have to make a decision on whether we want to offer, an expensive, important decision, which is whether we want to hire them or not. So it's really a massive shame that we spend those minutes and hours only partially paying attention to what they're saying, because a lot of our job, whether you're a recruiter, a hiring manager, or an interviewer, is to make sure you capture the data that they're sharing, which is obviously a really hard thing to do in itself. So Metaview's sort of first product, which is AI Notes, is designed to replace this. You can sort of get a feel for this or speak to us at our booth after if you'd like to. The second thing that we focus on solving for customers is really the amount of time that goes to cleaning up and then reformatting those hastily and frantically captured notes after the meeting, either to share with other stakeholders or to enter into your ATS scorecard. It's a lot of time. It's a really vital activity. It's really vital data, but it's an incredibly arduous and laborious and a bit of a time suck. It's often hard enough to get recruiters to reliably do this thoroughly, let alone hiring managers and other interviewers, which often results in actually some pretty unpleasant dynamics between teams where a recruiter feels like part of their job is to, nag HMs and interviewers to give more information, and it's sort of, doesn't feel like the best thing to be involved in. So our conversation intelligence engine accelerates this process massively. What you'll see in this GIF here is someone's got their notes. They ask Metaview to redo those notes, formatted in a different way around the topics that organization has decided are important. And so you do that in a few clicks rather than in half an hour of rewriting it yourself. And then the last thing that we really focus on, which is perhaps the biggest frustration for any recruiter, is that nothing sucks more than finding a great candidate, shepherding them and helping them through the whole interview process, a long and rigorous interview process, only to get to the end of that and you've got a hiring team that's unsure about what they want to do, can't remember maybe what the candidate said, or doesn't have the evidence at their fingertips to get the approval for the hire that they need internally. Massive waste of time. Metaview's AI assistant essentially records these interactions and then makes them searchable using natural language. So just like you can ask ChatGPT a question about anything on the planet, you can ask Metaview a question about anything in your interviews. Annie, would be great if you could tell us a bit more about, I guess, how the team at Cleo is using Metaview, and then we'll dive into impact.
Great. So I guess for us, those three topics definitely really resonated with us at Cleo. We've had some really positive feedback, not only from my team, the TA team, but also hiring managers. Most of them have said to me directly that they'd feel really lost now without Metaview, particularly from a productivity perspective. The AI note-taking is super intelligent and really works well, saves our team hours of a week to kind of really focus on the much higher impact tasks like building relationships with candidates. It's also helped a ton with candidate experience and improving the really kind of personalized attention that you can give to a candidate. You're not having to type away frantically, you can talk to them as a person. Where it's really helped is particularly the third point. We have really rich data now to refer back to when making hiring decisions.
Cool. So let's focus on some of the impact, and there'll be a bit of jumping between us, so we'll try and make our transitions as elegant as possible. Number one, we heard from Annie earlier that note-taking and scorecard writing just takes up a ton of time. I've obviously made that point as well. We believe it's a really important part of hiring because it's vital data, but a lot of the time is used on writing up or writing what was said, as opposed to actually deciding and judging, maybe even forming an opinion and synthesizing that information. So as a result of implementing Metaview's AI, the team at Cleo has seen improvements in the speed in which they are producing and reviewing high-quality notes. To get into specifics here, we surveyed the recruiters at Cleo, and they save an average of 4 to 6 hours per week as a result of not having to sort of do this refactoring and reformatting themselves, which of course spread across for each recruiter really adds up. And 100% actually of the respondents to, hey, does Metaview help you with your productivity and efficiency, answered with a big, strong yes. So the data certainly supports that removing this task, this portion of someone's day-to-day recruiting makes a real difference. And the actual feedback, which I think often is the place where you get the richest insight into how this helps people, has been great too. So, Annie.
Yes, and anecdotally from my team, we've had some really great feedback on how Metaview has helped our recruiters to collate highly detailed and structured interview notes for our hiring managers at speed. Jamie Davies, as you can see, his comment there, he is our talent lead for product and design at Cleo. He often works across 10 to 15 very different roles at any one time and speaks to up to 8 to 10 candidates directly a day. Having Metaview means that he doesn't need to spend hours writing up his notes for each candidate. Metaview captures every detail and helps with tailoring scorecards for each hiring manager, as often hiring managers want to see different structures or themes within those scorecards.
Thank you. And so great efficiency gains for recruiters, super important, a really big part of what we do and why we exist. But one of the things that's sort of especially cool about our relationship with Cleo, and we're seeing this more and more across our other customers too, is that of course, interviewing is really where hiring becomes a team sport, and suddenly you have this explosion of the number of people involved in this process, and of course, therefore, an explosion in the amount of time that may be wasted. And what Cleo are seeing is that as they expanded Metaview to the hiring teams, the hiring managers and the interviewers as well, those benefits are continuing. So as part of this surveying, we also asked hiring managers how much time they're saving. They said they're saving 20 minutes per interview, which of course sort of spread across the diaspora of interviewers in your company, again, really adds up. And we'll get onto the quality of those notes in a second, but even the time saving is really significant. And one of the sort of the knock-on benefits, aside from better visibility for the recruiting team into what's actually happening in these interviews, is also that they're getting that visibility quicker. So scorecard submission times have come down at Cleo as well. Again, though, a lot of the detail here, especially when you're thinking about improving the interview process, where again, you're relying on people far outside of your remit, maybe even far outside of your authority within the company, a lot of the best feedback is really the anecdotal, qualitative feedback. So yeah, would be great to hear that from Annie again.
For sure. I think our hiring managers have been super happy with the tool. They've all commented on how much time it saved them, and we've seen a really positive impact on our scorecard completion rate and the time it takes for them to submit those scorecards as well. Earlier we mentioned that scorecards were taking as long as an hour to fill out. That's now down to around 15 minutes per candidate. Plus interviewers are reporting that they can really give a much better candidate experience as they're able to give much personalised one-on-one focus when they're talking to the candidates on Zoom. Another perk is that our recruiters are actually able to see what's happening within those, well, firsthand within those interviews. So we're able to prep our candidates a lot better because we accurately know what our interviewers and our hiring managers are asking at each stage of the process.
Great. And then the last area where you see really visible change and improvement is in essentially the quality of insight or signal that is being captured by the organization. Again, as depending on the scale of the organization, you're speaking to hundreds or thousands or at least dozens of candidates every year and harvesting, hopefully, really valuable information. In the world before Metaview, previously, really a big part of the job was chasing HMs or interviewers for feedback, maybe getting a one-liner, a few bullet points if you're lucky, and that's really what we've sort of left in the dust. So yeah, we'll jump in now to this side of things because I think this is especially actually relevant for Cleo. Annie mentioned it in her sort of intro at the top of this, where they have a really rigorous process for approving their roles, and so there's a high bar for the amount of content that the leadership team is expecting to see when they come to approving a role, and so this has been a really key area.
Absolutely. As you can see, here's an example of a scorecard received from one of our recruiters before we had Metaview. As you can see, it's pretty light on detail and analysis. As an example, in the key takeaways section, it just says, worked on some really interesting and complex products. Not quite the level of analysis or detail that's going to help us to make an informed hiring decision. You can also see further down, a lot of the key questions are really missing detail and analysis as well. So kind of there's no information that you can refer back to when speaking to candidates. Oh, it's me again. Now, compared to this scorecard, so very, very, very thorough, almost too thorough, but this scorecard was filled after we integrated with Metaview. It's full of lots of really rich detail to help back up the recommendations with analysis. First, the scorecard has a really clear recommendation that includes specific rationale. As you can see, the hiring manager provided a really thorough summary for each assessment area, including concrete examples of what the candidate actually said, which he was able to pull from Metaview's notes. With scorecards like this, hiring teams are able to make much more rigorous and informed decisions based on evidence from what the candidate actually said, not just kind of fuzzy or incomplete memories. On top of that, we also now share Metaview notes, as Siadhal said, with our leadership team, our CEO, before we go to make an offer, so in our offer packs. And there's, he can go in and see a really kind of concise summary of everything that went into the hiring decision. And we can now be a lot more confident that we're not kind of missing any key details as well.
Ooh. Awesome. So that's it from us. Just, I guess, maybe one last thing to say. It's been a real pleasure working with Annie and the team at Cleo, really at the bleeding edge of what's now possible thanks to AI. And I think one thing we really try and hammer home is, the problems we're solving are very real, they're very tangible, they're very pragmatic challenges. And whether it's, through a product like Metaview or other areas where AI is now sort of taking effect, that's really where I would encourage folks to focus is what are these on-the-ground problems that you've long thought, hey, I wish this wasn't part of such a key part of my job, that maybe now don't have to be. Because I think that's where we're seeing the initial real tangible benefit of Metaview. In this case, I think you see that in terms of recruiter experience at an organization, in terms of how much time they spend on the work they love versus the stuff actually they wish they didn't have to spend time on. But of course, there's a knock-on impact on candidate experience too, both because you have better conversations, but also better decisions about them, and hiring managers as well. So yeah, hopefully Annie and I's story about how Cleo went about it is inspiring. And the last thing I'd like to say on it is also, I think it's a really great example. I mentioned at the top of the presentation about how AI is going to benefit recruiting. Really wanted to make that point as well, that this is about augmenting recruiters and essentially enabling them to spend time on things that are more valuable. And that's why we're so convinced that actually this revolution that is occurring, this productivity revolution, is going to predominantly benefit folks as they look to spend more time on the things that matter and less time on some of the things we wish we'd jettisoned, rather than, of course, replace the role. So yeah, thank you very much, and thanks, Annie, as well.